Hello, welcome to Progressive Django version 2. So in our previous series, we built a simple human resource management system version 1, and today we will open a new series to upgrade this system to version 2 by adding some new features. So in this video, I'm going to walk through a little bit about the project introduction. I'm going to show you the dev environment I'm using here. Also, we're going to start the project with the Django app. So in version 2 of our project, we will adopt the same architecture as we had in version 1. We will still use Django and we will not separate the front end and the back end part. Also, one thing we did in version 1, we used the raw SQL queries to get the data and operate on database. However, this is not very common in real-world projects. Instead, we will adopt a more common solution called ORM, or Object or Relational Mapping. It can be viewed as a solution to communicate between the model layer and the database. There are some very well-known Python libraries doing that, such as SQL Alchemy, which is widely used in Flask and Fast API. However, for Django developers, we don't need to install anything additional because we have a built-in ORM functions. This is very nice. In version 2 of this project, instead of getting data from our client, we will use mock data. We will basically build a factory class to generate the mock data to populate in our database and link with our models. Also, we will use jQuery for any front-end user interactivity. Next, I'm going to walk through a little bit about the dev environment. So the operating system I'm using here is Rocky Linux 9. It is a Linux very similar to the environment I'm using at work. Actually, for most of enterprise environments, Red Hat or CentOS-based Linux distributions are very popular. For example, on AWS, Amazon Linux is also based on CentOS Red Hat Linux. So this is something I'm going to use in this system. So I will just show OS release. As you can see, it's Rocky Linux version is 9.3. It's a derivative of Red Hat Linux, CentOS, or Fedora. As for the Python versions, I'm using 3.11.8. Since I use the Python installed via pym, it's very easy to switch between different Python versions. So I can just show how many Python versions installed on my system. As you can see, I set 3.11.8 as my global Python environment. The Django version I'm using is 5.0.3. I believe that's also the latest version as the time of writing. So let's just check the Django version I'm using. And I'm going to import Django. And I'm going to print Django.version here, 5.0.3. As for the database, similar to the version 1, I'm going to use PostgreSQL database, but this one is also deployed via Docker. So if I type docker ps, as you can see, I got one container running, and I can go inside this container to check its details. And I can just use command psql version. As you can see, I'm using 6.2, but the Docker container is actually based on the Debian system. So that's basically information for the PostgreSQL I'm using. Also for the IDE, unlike what I used for version 1, I'm going to use the new Vim, which is a very popular IDE among the Linux developers. So I'll just show, okay, here's my new Vim version. Okay, next, let's set up the project. So under this demo folder, I will create a subfolder called HRMS-V2. And I'm going to cd into this folder. First, I will create a virtual environment. To do that, I'll just type Python, use the module vim, and once the virtual environment is installed, let me just check. Okay, I can see there is a .vim folder. Then I'm going to activate this environment. So now my Python virtual environment is activated. Then I'm going to install the dependencies used for this project. Since we're using Django, so obviously we're going to install Django. Also, because we use PostgreSQL database, so we need a connector to connect between the Django app and the database. So the PostgreSQL database called CycleDG binary. Once we have the dependencies installed, the next job is for us to start the project. So we can use the Django admin command to start project. My habit is just create a Django project and place it under the project root. So let's check the project structure again. And now we have the Django project folder as well as the manage.py. So we could use this manage.py file to start our app. And the app, I will just call that employee. And as you can see, the employee folder is created. After we install our project and app, let's just configure the settings so that our project can be successfully run. I will open new Vim, and under Django project, under settings.py file, I will configure a couple of things. First, I will register the app employee to our installed apps. To do that, let me just navigate into this section and add employee here. Save. And next, I will also configure the template folder. So to do that, I will search for the templates, and there I found the dirs. So I would just add a template folder based off the base dir and templates. After I configure the template folder in the settings file, I would come into my project and add the templates folder under the project root. So here is where I put all of my templates files. After configure the template file, the next job for me is to configure the static file. So to do that, I would to all the way to the bottom of the settings file and type in static files dir, which is a base dir and static files. And then I would come into the project root and add that folder, which is static files. Okay, now everything is properly configured, and let's just run this project, make sure it can be run. So in my command line, under my project root folder, I would just type in .manage.py run server. And then as you can see, we started a development server at this URL. I'm just open it. Looks like the Django project is properly run. Okay, that's all for the introduction. In the next section, we will go through the process to build out the employee app as well as start generating some mock data. Stay tuned for the updates. Thank you.